Do you ever wonder who truly holds the power in a room? Is it the loudest voice, the person with the most polished suit, or perhaps the quiet one observing, calculating, building an empire in plain sight? Kiera Muller, at 29, was often the quiet one, the one everyone overlooked. Her older sister, Claudia, a vice president at a prestigious Berlin firm, embodied everything Kiera seemingly was not: loud, assertive, ostentatiously successful. Every Sunday, without fail, the family gathered for brunch at their parents' elegant Charlottenburg apartment, a ritual that, for Kiera, had become a weekly endurance test. Claudia, with her perfectly coiffed blonde hair and designer clothes, would inevitably steer the conversation to her corporate triumphs, her voice echoing with a self-assured confidence that brooked no argument. Then her piercing blue eyes would land on Kiera, often dressed in comfortable, unpretentious attire, diligently sketching in a notebook or quietly sipping her tea. "And Kiera," Claudia would begin, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk playing on her lips. "Still playing with her little online business. How's that hobby coming along?" Her tone dripped with a patronizing amusement, implying that Kiera's endeavors were quaint, inconsequential, a child's game compared to the high stakes of real corporate life. Their parents, well-meaning but often swayed by Claudia's more boisterous personality, would offer sympathetic smiles to Kiera, a silent acknowledgement of Claudia's relentless need to diminish her younger sister. Kiera would simply offer a serene, noncommittal smile in return. Her dark eyes, deep pools of intelligence, would meet Claudia's, holding no trace of anger or resentment, only a profound, almost pitying calm. She would simply state, "It's coming along, Claudia. Very well, actually." She never elaborated, never defended, never boasted. To do so would be to play Claudia's game, a game Kiera had long since decided she had no interest in winning on those terms. She knew her worth, and it wasn't measured in boardroom battles or public declarations. Her battles were fought in the quiet hum of servers, in the intricate algorithms of data, in the silent exponential growth of an idea that had blossomed into a formidable reality. The clinking of porcelain and the murmur of polite conversation would resume, but the emotional current beneath the surface was palpable. Claudia's dismissal was a constant, dull ache for Kiera, a wound that never quite healed, a reminder of a childhood spent in her sister's shadow, always measured and found wanting. Yet, that very dismissal had forged an iron will within Kiera, an unyielding determination to prove not to them, but to herself, the boundless potential that lay dormant beneath their casual disregard. She had learned early on that true strength wasn't in proving others wrong with words, but with undeniable, irrefutable results, results that would one day speak for themselves, louder than any boardroom pronouncement, more eloquently than any dismissive laugh. Her quiet resolve was her shield, her unshakable belief in her own path, her secret weapon. What Claudia, and indeed the entire family, failed to grasp was the monumental scale of Kiera's little online business. Far from a hobby, it was a finely tuned, meticulously managed multi-million-euro enterprise, a sprawling digital ecosystem that Kiera had built from the ground up, fueled by her innate understanding of market dynamics and her relentless pursuit of innovation. While Claudia navigated the labyrinthine politics of a traditional corporation, Kiera was charting new territories, redefining industries, and quietly amassing a fortune built on foresight and execution. Her days were not spent in endless meetings, but in deep dives into data analytics, in strategic planning sessions with her globally distributed team, and in coding new features that would revolutionize user experience. Her workspace, a minimalist loft apartment overlooking the bustling streets of Mitte, was a hive of quiet productivity. Monitors glowed with complex dashboards, whiteboards were covered in intricate flowcharts, and the air hummed with the silent energy of creation. Kiera often worked late into the night, the city lights her only companions, her focus absolute, her dedication unwavering. She wasn't driven by a desire for lavish displays of wealth, her lifestyle remained modest, unassuming. Instead, her motivation was a complex tapestry woven from a need for self-validation, a burning desire to prove that intellect and innovation were not solely the domain of established institutions, and a subtle, almost unconscious craving for the recognition that had always eluded her within her own family. She remembered countless times in her youth when her insightful observations were brushed aside, her unconventional ideas met with polite skepticism, while Claudia's more conventional achievements were celebrated with fanfare. This history had instilled in Kiera a profound appreciation for genuine merit and a quiet disdain for superficial accolades. She knew that true power lay not in a title, but in the ability to create, to adapt, to innovate. Her company, specializing in niche digital platforms and data-driven marketing solutions, had achieved exponential growth through word of mouth and undeniable results. Clients flocked to her, not because of a flashy corporate image, but because Kiera's solutions consistently delivered. She had a knack for seeing trends before they materialized, for understanding human behavior online with an almost intuitive precision. Each successful project, each new client onboarded, each milestone reached, was a quiet victory, a testament to her vision and perseverance. The dramatic irony hung heavy in the air, a silent joke Kiera held close. The sister who dismissed her as a dilettante was, unknowingly, looking down upon an entrepreneur whose financial acumen and strategic foresight far surpassed anything learned in a traditional MBA program. Kiera's quiet confidence wasn't born of arrogance, but from the unshakable foundation of tangible success, built brick by digital brick, under the radar of those who simply weren't looking hard enough. Life, however, has a peculiar way of rebalancing the scales, often in the most unexpected ways. While Kiera's digital empire flourished quietly, Claudia's seemingly unshakable world at Olympus Global began to show the first hairline fractures. Olympus Global, a venerable institution in the German financial services sector, had long been seen as an impregnable fortress of stability and tradition. But the winds of change, fierce and unrelenting, were blowing through the global economy, and Olympus, slow to adapt, was beginning to falter. At Sunday brunch, the subtle signs began to emerge. Claudia, usually impeccably composed, now sported faint dark circles under her eyes, her usually smooth brow furrowed with a permanent line of worry. Her phone, once a mere accessory for occasional dismissive glances, now buzzed incessantly, its notifications demanding her urgent attention. She would frequently excuse herself from the table, her voice hushed, the words restructuring, liquidity, and market downturn escaping in urgent whispers. Kiera, ever the astute observer, noticed these shifts. She saw the tension in her sister's jaw, the slight tremor in her hand as she refilled her coffee cup. The familiar, condescending tone in Claudia's voice, when speaking of Kiera's online hobby, became sharper, laced with an almost desperate edge, as if clinging to a rapidly diminishing sense of superiority. This was a coping mechanism, Kiera understood, a way for Claudia to project an illusion of control when her own world was slipping. Herr Richter, the stoic CEO of Olympus Global, was also feeling the immense pressure. A man in his late 50s with a lifetime's worth of corporate experience etched onto his weary face, he was a leader steeped in tradition, a firm believer in the established order. He had built his career on slow, steady growth, on meticulous planning and cautious expansion. But the market now demanded agility, disruption, and a radical rethinking of business models, qualities that Olympus, and Herr Richter himself, struggled to embody. He was accustomed to commanding respect, not begging for time. His usual dignified bearing was now tinged with a palpable anxiety. He could be seen pacing the vast executive floor late into the evenings, his shoulders slumped under the invisible weight of declining profits and shareholder unrest. He knew the company was in trouble, deep trouble, but his ingrained approach offered no immediate solutions. He was a captain on a sinking ship, stubbornly trying to bail water with a teacup. Kiera, reading the financial news, noting the whispers in industry circles, began to piece together the full, dire picture. She saw Olympus's stock steadily depreciating, heard the analysts' grave predictions, understood the systemic issues that were suffocating the once mighty firm. She didn't gloat. Instead, a quiet calculation began to form in her mind. She saw not just a failing company, but a colossal challenge, a strategic opportunity veiled in corporate distress. This wasn't merely about personal vindication, it was about identifying a vast, untapped potential within a crumbling edifice, a potential she knew she had the unique vision and means to unlock. The financial troubles at Olympus Global spiraled downwards with alarming speed, transforming from a distant rumbling to a full-blown earthquake. The news headlines grew increasingly grim. Olympus Global shares plummet amidst liquidity concerns. Mass layoffs announced at financial giant. Analyst downgrades Olympus to sell. The once proud institution was bleeding money, its reputation in tatters, its future hanging by a thread. The pressure on Claudia became unbearable. She arrived at brunch one Sunday, her usually immaculate hair disheveled, her expensive suit looking more like a uniform of defeat than success. Her dismissals of Kiera's online thing were no longer playful jabs but desperate, cutting remarks, born of deep-seated insecurity and fear. It's easy for you, Kiera, playing with your little niche market while real companies that actually contribute to the economy, are struggling. She spat out, her voice cracking with a raw emotion she rarely displayed. Their parents, visibly uncomfortable, tried to interject, but Claudia was beyond appeasement. Kiera simply watched, her expression unreadable, a quiet sorrow in her eyes for her sister's unraveling. Herr Richter, meanwhile, was in a constant state of crisis management, his days a blur of frantic phone calls, emergency board meetings, and desperate pleas to lenders. The weight of potential bankruptcy, of thousands of livelihoods hanging in the balance, crushed him. He explored every traditional avenue: cost, cutting, asset sales, even a desperate search for a white knight investor, but each path led to a dead end. The company's outdated infrastructure, its rigid internal hierarchies, and its inability to innovate meant it was a dinosaur in a rapidly evolving digital landscape. He felt like he was drowning, slowly but surely, with no life raft in sight. He saw the grim faces of his long-serving employees, the fear in their eyes, and felt the heavy burden of his responsibility. He had dedicated his life to Olympus, and now, under his watch, it was crumbling. Kiera, observing from afar, didn't just read the public reports, she delved deeper. She leveraged her extensive network in the tech and finance sectors, discreetly gathering intelligence, cross-referencing data, and analyzing market sentiments. She saw what others missed, not just a failing company, but a company with immense, albeit dormant, underlying assets, a vast client base, a skilled workforce, and a legacy of trust, however tarnished. She saw the potential for a radical transformation, a digital metamorphosis that only a disruptor, someone outside the traditional financial world, could orchestrate. The tension in the air was thick, heavy with the impending doom of Olympus Global. But for Kiera, this crisis was not an end, but a beginning. It was the moment she had been quietly preparing for, the precise alignment of opportunity and capability. The time for quiet observation was over. The moment for decisive action had arrived. The decision to act was not impulsive for Kiera, but the culmination of weeks of meticulous analysis and strategic planning. It wasn't about revenge or proving Claudia wrong directly. It was a cold, calculated move, born of opportunity and her unshakable belief in her own capacity to resurrect what others deemed lost. For Kiera, it was about transforming a legacy institution, about injecting new life into stagnant systems, and about demonstrating that true value lay not in outdated structures, but in agile innovation. She engaged her top legal counsel and a team of seasoned financial advisors, all sworn to absolute discretion. The process was swift, surgical, and executed with the precision of a master chess player. While Herr Richter was frantically scrambling for any last-minute bailout, Kiera's team was quietly acquiring shares, structuring deals, and preparing the groundwork for a complete corporate takeover. The negotiations were delicate, often held in hushed tones in private offices or via encrypted video calls, always with an emphasis on speed and secrecy. Kiera herself led many of these discussions, her calm demeanor and sharp intellect disarming even the most seasoned dealmakers. She articulated her vision for Olympus Global with such clarity and conviction that even those initially skeptical of an online business owner taking over a traditional financial firm began to see the logic, the undeniable potential. Meanwhile, the family brunches continued. Claudia, oblivious to the seismic shift unfolding beneath her feet, continued to vent her frustrations about Olympus's woes, describing the company's desperate search for a buyer, often lamenting the lack of visionaries in the market. "No one wants to touch us with a 10-foot pole, Kiera." She'd sigh dramatically, unaware that the person poised to do more than touch, but to utterly transform, was sitting directly across from her, calmly sipping her herbal tea. The dramatic irony was almost unbearable, a silent play unfolding with Kiera in the lead role, while her unwitting sister played the part of the oblivious victim. Kiera would nod sympathetically, offering vague but encouraging words, all the while her mind racing with the intricate details of the acquisition. Her internal monologue was a constant hum of purpose. This wasn't about tearing down, but rebuilding, not about shaming, but reshaping. She carried the weight of her ambitious plans with a serene composure, her every action deliberate, every word measured. This was her moment, forged in the fires of past dismissals and honed by years of quiet, relentless work. She knew that when the truth finally emerged, it would be a moment of profound revelation, not just for Claudia, but for everyone who had ever underestimated the quiet power of a hidden gem. The stage was set, the pieces were in place, and the curtain was about to rise on a dramatic unveiling that would forever alter the lives of everyone involved. The day of the announcement dawned crisp and clear over Berlin, but within the hallowed, panic-stricken halls of Olympus Global, the atmosphere was anything but serene. A palpable tension hung in the air, thick with anxiety and unspoken dread. Employees huddled in small groups, whispering nervously about the impending board meeting, aware that their livelihoods, their very futures, hung precariously in the balance. Herr Richter, looking drawn and aged beyond his years, stood before the assembled board members, his shoulders slumped, his usual commanding presence diminished to a shadow. He had called this emergency meeting to announce the inevitable. The company, after exhaustive efforts, had found no suitable buyer, no viable path forward. Bankruptcy, it seemed, was the only remaining option, a bitter pill he was forced to swallow. His voice, usually firm, wavered as he began to speak, the weight of his failure crushing him. Just as he was about to deliver the devastating news, the heavy oak doors at the back of the boardroom swung open. All heads turned, expecting perhaps another last-minute financial advisor or a legal representative. But the person who walked in was strikingly out of place. It was Kiera Mueller. She was dressed simply, yet elegantly, in a tailored dark suit, her movements fluid and confident. She carried no briefcase, no stack of papers, just a quiet, unshakable aura of authority. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Claudia, seated among the other VPs, her face a mask of despair, looked up, her eyes widening in confusion. "Kiera, what are you doing here?" "This is a private meeting," she whispered, a hint of annoyance in her voice, still clinging to the last vestiges of her corporate decorum. Kiera offered her sister a small, almost imperceptible smile. Her dark eyes, usually so soft, now held a steely glint of determination. She walked purposefully to the head of the long mahogany table, directly opposite Herr Richter, who stared at her with a bewildered expression. "Good morning, Herr Richter, esteemed board members." Kiera began, her voice calm and clear, cutting through the heavy silence. "My apologies for the unscheduled entrance. I am here today not as a guest, but as a representative of the acquiring entity. Her words hung in the air, a stunning, disorienting declaration. Herr Richter's eyes, glazed with despair moments before, snapped into focus, a flicker of bewildered hope, then dawning realization, crossing his face. Claudia, meanwhile, visibly stiffened. Her eyes darted from Kiera to Herr Richter, then around the room as if searching for a hidden camera, a punchline to an elaborate joke. Acquiring entity? She scoffed, a nervous, disbelieving laugh escaping her lips. Kiera, what are you talking about? Your online shop? Are you serious? Kiera turned to face her sister directly, her gaze unwavering. Yes, Claudia, my online shop, as you so affectionately call it, has successfully acquired Olympus Global. As of this moment, I am your new CEO. The words landed like a physical blow. Claudia's jaw dropped, her face draining of all color. The room erupted in a cacophony of whispers, gasps, and frantic murmurs. The dramatic irony that had quietly simmered for so long now exploded into an undeniable, shocking reality. The overlooked virtuoso had finally, unequivocally, stepped into the light, transforming the very landscape around her. The initial shock in the boardroom was quickly followed by a cacophony of murmurs and a palpable sense of disbelief. Claudia, recovering from her initial stupor, rose from her chair, her face contorted with a mixture of anger, humiliation, and utter bewilderment. This is absurd, she practically shrieked, her voice echoing off the polished walls. You, Kiera? You can't possibly. This is a joke, a cruel, elaborate joke. Kiera, standing calmly at the head of the table, met her sister's gaze with a serene, unyielding resolve. It is no joke, Claudia. It is the culmination of years of quiet work and strategic planning. My company, Aura Digital, has successfully acquired Olympus Global. All legal procedures have been meticulously followed, and the necessary documents are being distributed as we speak. She gestured to a discreetly placed assistant, who began handing out thick dossiers to the stunned board members. The assistant also placed one in front of Claudia, who stared at it as if it were a venomous snake. Kiera then turned her attention to the rest of the room, her voice gaining a resonant authority that commanded silence. I understand this comes as a shock to many of you. For too long, Olympus Global has been struggling, shackled by outdated models and a resistance to change. My vision for this company is not merely to rescue it from the brink, but to transform it into a leading, agile force in the digital age of finance. We will merge traditional strength with innovative technology, focusing on efficiency, customer-centric solutions, and a culture of forward-thinking adaptation. Her words were clear, concise, and utterly compelling. She spoke not just as an acquirer, but as a leader with a coherent, actionable plan. Herr Richter, who had been sitting in stunned silence, slowly pushed himself up. He looked at Kiera, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and profound gratitude. Miss Muller, Kiera, I don't know what to say. We were at the precipice. You have saved us. Kiera offered him a gentle, reassuring smile. Herr Richter, your dedication to Olympus Global for decades is undeniable. Your experience, your knowledge of this industry is invaluable. My vision requires the best minds, not just new ones. Therefore, I would like to offer you a new role, Chief Strategy Officer. You will oversee the integration of our technological advancements into Olympus's core operations, guiding us with your deep institutional wisdom. The offer was not just a title, it was an olive branch, a profound act of respect and recognition for a man who had felt himself utterly defeated. Herr Richter's eyes welled up with unshed tears. He nodded, unable to speak, a silent vow of loyalty forming in his heart. Claudia, still clutching the acquisition papers, stumbled back, collapsing into her chair. Her face was ashen, her previous arrogance completely shattered, replaced by a raw, naked vulnerability. She had spent a lifetime diminishing Kiera, only to be utterly eclipsed by her younger sister's quiet, undeniable triumph. Kiera had not sought vengeance, but in her unwavering pursuit of her own path, she had achieved a validation far more powerful than any fleeting victory, one that irrevocably shifted the power dynamic in her family and beyond. The room, once filled with despair, now buzzed with a newfound, if still bewildered, sense of hope. In the immediate aftermath of Kiera's stunning announcement, the atmosphere at Olympus Global underwent a radical, almost palpable transformation. The initial shock began to give way to a cautious optimism, then quickly, to a surge of renewed energy and purpose. Kiera wasted no time. Her first actions as CEO were decisive and impactful. She addressed the entire workforce, not from a high-flung corporate pulpit, but in a town hall meeting, speaking directly, authentically, and with a transparent vision for the company's future. She outlined her plan to retain key talent, invest heavily in digital infrastructure, and re-engineer outdated processes, all while preserving the company's strong legacy of trust and client relationships. Employees who had been bracing for layoffs and a hostile takeover found themselves listening to a leader who spoke of innovation, growth, and respect for their collective expertise. Kiera's quiet confidence, once misinterpreted as diffidence, now radiated as unshakable conviction. Herr Richter, in his new role as Chief Strategy Officer, became Kiera's most ardent champion. He was astounded by her brilliance, her foresight, and her remarkable ability to navigate the complex world of finance with such a fresh, agile perspective. He had spent decades entrenched in traditional methods, and now, under Kiera's guidance, he felt a thrilling rejuvenation, a rediscovery of purpose. He saw how she valued his institutional knowledge, how she blended his experience with her revolutionary ideas, and he dedicated himself fully to her vision. He marveled at how someone he initially knew only as his vice president's unassuming younger sister could possess such extraordinary leadership qualities and strategic depth. Meanwhile, Claudia's world had been irrevocably turned upside down. Her initial fury gave way to a profound sense of humiliation and deep, gnawing envy. She found herself reporting to the sister she had systematically belittled, forced to witness Kiera's undisputed authority and the quiet admiration she commanded from colleagues who had once revered Claudia. Every day was a stark reminder of her own misjudgment, her narrow-mindedness. She tried to maintain her facade of sophistication, but her colleagues, once deferential, now treated her with a polite distance, their eyes reflecting the knowledge of her downfall. Slowly, painstakingly, a crack began to appear in Claudia's hardened shell. She observed Kiera, not just as her new boss, but as a genuinely exceptional leader. She saw Kiera's unwavering focus, her ethical approach, her calm handling of crises that would have sent Claudia into a tailspin. She watched as Kiera built bridges, empowered teams, and made decisions that were not only financially astute, but deeply humane. The realization began to dawn on Claudia that success wasn't just about titles or external validation, but about intrinsic worth, about true capability and the quiet power of an authentic vision. The transformation of Olympus Global under Kiera's leadership was swift and remarkable. New digital platforms launched, customer engagement soared, and the company's stock began a steady, upward climb. The narrative shifted from a story of impending failure to one of a miraculous corporate rebirth, all orchestrated by the quiet, unassuming woman who had once been merely Kiera's little sister. Under Kiera's visionary leadership, Olympus Global, now rebranded as Aura Finance, not only recovered from the brink of collapse but began to thrive, experiencing unprecedented growth and solidifying its position as a pioneer in digital financial services. Her innovative strategies, once dismissed by traditionalists, were now lauded as revolutionary. The company became a model for how legacy institutions could successfully navigate and embrace the digital age, a testament to Kiera's unique blend of technological expertise and profound understanding of market dynamics. Herr Richter, now a fervent advocate for Kiera, often spoke of her genius in industry conferences, humbly acknowledging his initial blindness. "I spent my life building structures, only to watch them crumble," he would say, his voice thick with emotion. But Kiera taught me that true strength lies not in the rigidity of tradition, but in the fluidity of innovation, in the courage to see potential where others see only ruin. She saw the soul of Olympus, the talent within its people, and she nurtured it back to life, not through brute force, but through quiet wisdom. His transformation was complete. He had become her loyal lieutenant, a living embodiment of the power of mentorship and renewed purpose. For Claudia, the journey was far more arduous. The initial shock and humiliation were gradually replaced by a complex cocktail of envy, grudging respect, and a deep, unsettling introspection. She remained at Aura Finance, now working under Kiera, stripped of her VP title and the accompanying prestige. Every day was a stark confrontation with her past dismissals and her sister's undeniable, magnificent success. She watched Kiera command rooms, inspire loyalty, and solve problems with an ease that belied their complexity. She observed how Kiera treated everyone, from junior staff to senior executives, with the same quiet dignity and respect, a stark contrast to Claudia's own past condescension. There were no grand apologies, no tearful reconciliations between the sisters. Kiera, ever pragmatic, understood that true change was internal and could not be forced. Yet, one quiet afternoon, Claudia approached Kiera's office, a rare act for her. She hesitated at the door, her shoulders slumped. "Kiera," she began, her voice softer than Kiera had ever heard it, devoid of its usual sharp edges. I was wrong, about everything, about you, about what true leadership means." Kiera simply looked up from her desk, her dark eyes, warm and understanding, meeting Claudia's. She offered a small, knowing smile. "We all learn, Claudia. The most important lessons often come from unexpected places. It wasn't a forgiveness or an absolution, but an acknowledgement. A subtle opening for a different kind of relationship to form, one built on a newfound respect, however fragile." Kiera found her own quiet satisfaction in the quiet hum of her flourishing company, in the revitalized spirit of its employees, and in the profound validation that came from within, knowing she had honored her own path. Regardless of external recognition or familial skepticism, she had proven, not to them, but to herself, that her silent strength was her greatest asset. The Sunday brunches at the Muller family apartment continued, a comforting ritual despite the seismic shifts that had occurred. But the dynamic at the table was irrevocably changed, subtly, yet profoundly. Kiera no longer sat quietly in the corner, sketching or observing. She was now the undisputed anchor of the conversation, not through boastfulness or overt assertions of power, but through the quiet gravity of her presence, the undeniable weight of her achievements. When she spoke, everyone listened, their attention rapt, their expressions reflecting a newfound admiration. Claudia, who once dominated the discourse, now occupied a quieter, more reflective space at the table. Her sharp wit was softened, her condescension replaced by a thoughtful silence, occasionally punctuated by a hesitant, almost respectful question directed at Kiera regarding a business challenge or a market trend. The journey had humbled her, stripping away the layers of arrogance and forcing her to confront the true meaning of success and worth. She might never fully articulate the depth of her regret, or offer the grand apology Kiera had never sought, but her changed demeanor, her quiet respect, spoke volumes. Kiera, observing her sister, felt no triumph, no desire for retribution. Instead, a quiet empathy bloomed within her. She understood that Claudia's journey, however painful, had been necessary for her own growth. Kiera's satisfaction came not from proving someone wrong, but from proving her own potential right, from seeing her vision manifest into a thriving reality. Her success wasn't merely financial. It was a testament to the power of perseverance, the resilience of the human spirit, and the quiet dignity of pursuing one's true calling, even when no one else sees it. The family, initially bewildered, had slowly come to grips with Kiara's extraordinary rise. Their parents, once sympathetically indulgent towards Kiara's hobby, now swelled with immense pride, their smiles genuine, and their words full of heartfelt admiration. They saw not just a successful entrepreneur, but a daughter who had achieved greatness on her own terms, forging a path uniquely hers. Kiara had shown them all that true value isn't always loud or obvious. It often resides in the quiet corners, meticulously building, patiently waiting for its moment to shine. Her story was a living embodiment of the profound truth that genius often wears a humble cloak, and that the greatest transformations are often orchestrated by those who are underestimated, overlooked, and quietly underestimated. It reminds us that every person, regardless of their current status or perceived insignificance, holds within them an unquantifiable potential, a hidden gem waiting to be discovered, not just by others, but often, most importantly, by themselves. So, the next time you encounter someone quietly going about their work, someone whose path seems unconventional or unremarkable, remember Kiara. Remember that true power often operates in the shadows, that real brilliance shines brightest when it's allowed to grow authentically, unburdened by external expectations. Don't just look, truly see. Don't just listen, truly hear. For in every quiet soul, in every unseen effort, lies the seed of something extraordinary. What hidden potential are you overlooking in someone around you? What silent empire is being built right under your nose? Take a moment, truly look, truly listen, and you might just witness the next extraordinary transformation. Share this story, and remind someone that the greatest power often lies within those we least expect.